There was once a ship captain taken hostage by 4 armed pirates. They were all crammed together inside a lifeboat drifting in the open sea. From a distance, an American sniper carefully aimed his rifle, his sights locked onto that very lifeboat. The mission was clear: eliminate the pirates. But the risk was immense. One wrong move and everyone inside the lifeboat could be killed, including the captain. Would the mission end in rescue or tragedy? This is the true story of Captain Richard Phillips and one of the most daring maritime hijacking cases in modern history. Let's go back to April 6, 2009 at the port of Oman. A massive cargo ship, the Maersk Alabama, was preparing to sail toward Mombasa, Kenya. On board were 23 crew members and over 17,000 tons of cargo. The ship was owned by an American company, and commanding the voyage was Captain Richard Phillips. By 6 in the morning, the crew was conducting a short briefing to go over the planned route. One of the officers outlined their plan. They would first stop at Djibouti, located on the Horn of Africa, to drop off part of their cargo. Then they would continue to Mombasa. There was a noticeable tension among the crew. The waters around the Horn of Africa were infamous, not for storms or reefs, but for pirates. Just a week before, 6 ships traveling in the Indian Ocean near Kenya had been hijacked by Somali pirates, each demanding millions in ransom. Despite the fear, they had no choice. This was the only shipping route. Captain Phillips, however, was confident. His crew had just completed anti-piracy training a week before. He believed that if they encountered trouble, they'd know what to do. About 30 minutes later, the Maersk Alabama departed the port of Oman and began its voyage. For the first day, the journey was smooth. What they didn't know was that a group of pirates had already picked up their ship on radar. These weren't accidental encounters. Pirates had access to maritime scanners and used them to track potential targets. The following morning, April 7th, Captain Phillips saw 2 small, fast-moving boats appear on the ship's radar. Using binoculars, he spotted them in the distance. He couldn't make out if they were innocent fishermen or something else. His instincts told him otherwise. He immediately summoned the crew and ordered them to prepare. To confirm his suspicion, he asked the helmsman to turn the ship 5 degrees. If the boats continued to follow, they'd know for sure they were being hunted. And that's exactly what happened. The small boats mirrored their every move. These weren't fishermen, they were pirates. Captain Phillips then ordered the engine room to increase speed. The goal was simple: outrun them. Realizing the ship was accelerating, the pirates pushed their speedboats to the limit, even though the engines were old and at risk of breaking down. But they had no choice. They either caught the ship now or lost it forever. Meanwhile, Captain Phillips used a clever trick. He knew the pirates had radios and could pick up their communication frequencies. So he pretended to radio for U.S. military air support, saying, "We are under pirate attack, requesting immediate aerial backup." The pirates heard the transmission and panicked. One group quickly turned around, terrified they would be bombed, but one boat didn't turn away. Its leader, a man named Muse, was furious. He ordered his team to floor the engine, ignoring their fears that it might explode. But minutes later, their boat sputtered and stopped. The engine had broken down. They failed to reach the ship. On board the Maersk Alabama, relief washed over the crew. The 2 threats had disappeared. The pirates were gone. For now. Everyone relaxed, thinking they were safe. But that sense of safety wouldn't last. The next day, April 8th, they were jolted into panic once more. On the radar, another fast-approaching speedboat. It was Muse. He had returned with vengeance. Captain Phillips immediately ordered preparations for defense. The ship had no guards, no guns, so their only weapons were high-pressure fire hoses mounted to spray water at attackers climbing the hull. The crew activated the hoses and began blasting the pirates as they drew closer. But Muse and his men weren't afraid. They pushed forward, bullets now flying from their AK-47s toward the Maersk Alabama. Captain Phillips ordered all 14 engineers to hide in a secure engine room and prepare to shut down the ship's systems in case pirates boarded. Disabling the engine would prevent the ship from being taken to Somalia, a tactic pirates often used to demand ransom. Now the pirates were close enough. They brought out a ladder. The crew couldn't get close enough to stop them. Muse and his men had firearms, and any attempt to interfere would be suicide. The ladder was attached to the side of the ship. One by one, the pirates climbed aboard. Captain Phillips ordered the rest of the crew to shut down all operations and hide. He and a few others stayed on the bridge, the ship's control room, bracing for what was about to happen. Seconds later, the door burst open. 4 armed pirates stormed in, screaming and demanding to know where the crew was. Phillips simply said, "I don't know. I've been here alone." Muse, furious, threatened to shoot a crew member unless the others revealed themselves. Phillips didn't flinch. "Don't hurt anyone," he said. "I'm the captain. If you need someone, take me." Muse wasn't interested in killing the captain. He had other plans. He forced Phillips to come with them as they began searching the ship room by room. What Muse didn't know was that the captain's radio was still on, and everything he said was being heard by the engineers hiding below. As they reached the lower levels, Muse insisted on entering the engine room. Phillips deflected. "Too hot in there," he said. "Let's stop by the storage room for water." Muse agreed. Inside the storage room, one of the crew was hiding. Muse's companion, another pirate with an AK-47, was barefoot. Phillips raised his voice slightly. "Careful! Lots of sharp debris around. You might hurt yourself." It was a coded warning. The crew member in hiding understood. He quietly radioed the engineers. "They're headed your way. One of them is barefoot. Use that." The engineers quickly smashed glass bottles and spread the shards across the floor near the engine room entrance. Moments later, Muse and the barefoot pirate arrived at the door. The barefoot man entered first and screamed. His feet had been sliced open by the hidden glass. Muse was enraged. He accused Captain Phillips of setting a trap. Phillips calmly denied it, saying, "It must have been accidental." Unable to walk, the injured pirate had to be carried back up. Muse insisted that Phillips take him back to the control room. Alone now, Muse returned to the engine room to search. As he moved cautiously with only a flashlight, one of the crew ambushed him, striking him from behind, grabbing his weapon. The rest of the engineers piled on. Muse was overpowered, tied up and taken hostage. Phillips and the other pirate were still above, unaware. That's when the crew radioed the pirates on the ship. "We have your captain. If you don't release ours, we will kill him." It was a tense standoff. Captain Phillips calmly suggested a solution. There was a lifeboat. The pirates could leave, take their wounded leader Muse, and avoid bloodshed. They agreed. The crew brought Muse, still injured, up to the deck at knife point. The remaining pirates unlatched the lifeboat from the ship and boarded it, bringing Phillips along to show them how to operate the controls. Phillips told his crew, "Let them take Muse. When I get out, I'll jump back." But the plan didn't work. As soon as Muse entered the lifeboat, the pirates turned on Phillips. They hit him and pushed him inside. The lifeboat dropped into the ocean, taking Captain Phillips hostage. With their ladder gone and no way back to the Maersk Alabama, the pirates had one card left to play: ransom. They radioed demands, millions of dollars for the safe return of the captain. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy had been contacted. 2 warships, the USS Bainbridge and USS Haileyburton, arrived on April 9th. The Navy quickly took control of the Maersk Alabama and began tracking the lifeboat. When the pirates saw the size of the warships, fear crept in. The Navy opened communications. They demanded the pirates surrender. But Muse's group held firm. They believed backup pirates would arrive soon to rescue them. What they didn't know was this: no help was coming. No other pirates dared face the American Navy. The next night, April 10th, Captain Phillips saw an opportunity. He kicked one pirate and dove into the sea, swimming in total darkness. The Navy spotted the splash but couldn't fire. It was too dark. The pirates recovered him quickly and dragged him back inside. Tensions rose. That same night, the Navy SEALs arrived. Trained snipers, silent professionals. They installed listening devices on the lifeboat, tracking every word. They also tricked the pirates into allowing Muse to board a Navy vessel for negotiations. They told the pirates their village elders would come to mediate, and the money, $10 million in ransom, was on the way. It was all a lie. Inside the lifeboat, Captain Phillips had been forced into seat 15. The SEALs knew exactly where he was. Once Muse was away, the Navy moved into position. They tied a tow line to the lifeboat, subtly stabilizing it. Then it happened. A loud mechanical sound echoed from the Navy vessel, an intentional distraction perfectly timed. It sounded like a sudden tow line movement or a mechanical clank. The purpose? To make the pirates inside the lifeboat react. And they did. Startled, all three pirates inside the lifeboat stood up instinctively, their heads briefly exposed in the small windows. One looked toward the noise, another stepped closer to the hatch. Their position shifted. Just enough. That was all the Navy SEAL snipers needed. From three separate sniper positions aboard the USS Bainbridge, the order was given. With deadly precision, 3 shots rang out simultaneously. 1, 2, 3. Each bullet struck its target. 3 pirates. 3 clean headshots. In an instant, it was over. Inside the lifeboat, Captain Phillips remained frozen, stunned by the deafening silence that followed. For a moment, he didn't move, unsure if he was still in danger, unsure if it was truly over. Then he heard footsteps approaching. U.S. Navy rescue teams swarmed the lifeboat, weapons drawn, voices firm but calm. They found Captain Phillips alive, shaken but completely unharmed, not a single scratch on him. The man who had been a hostage just moments ago was finally free. At the same time, Muse, the pirate leader, was already in custody aboard the Navy ship. He had no idea his men were now dead. He would later be flown to the United States to face trial for piracy and hostage-taking. He was eventually sentenced to over 30 years in federal prison. As for Captain Richard Phillips, he was taken aboard the USS Bainbridge, offered medical care, water, and a satellite phone. The first thing he did was call his wife. His voice cracked as he said, "I'm okay." Tears flowed freely on both ends of the line. Back home, his family rejoiced. News agencies around the world covered the dramatic rescue. The President of the United States personally called to congratulate the Navy and honor Captain Phillips' bravery. The White House hailed the mission as a textbook example of military precision and heroism. Captain Phillips took a well-earned break after the incident. He rested, he healed, he spent precious time with his family, and 14 months later, he made the courageous decision to return to the sea, back to the very waters that had once threatened his life. Because to him, the ocean was not just a place of danger, it was home. And that is the extraordinary true story of courage, strategy, and survival on the open ocean. A story that reminds us of what it means to stay calm under pressure, to make sacrifices for others, and to never lose hope, even when the odds are against you. This is the end of today's story. Thank you for watching till the end. We'll see you in the next video.